I was kidnapped at 5. I pretended to pass out and saw the true face of my so-called savior Fu Yanji. He was the one who leaked my whereabouts and got my mother killed, all to gain leverage over the Shang family. More than 10 years later he married me. He wanted the combined family assets. I married him waiting for my revenge to come full circle. Who would have thought his white moonlight would return? He protected the mistress and turned completely ruthless toward me. He never even noticed that I had hidden his stomach cancer report. In this marriage, he calculated every benefit. I laid a perfect death trap. In the end he became a vegetable. I held both family conglomerates in my hands. As for love, it has never existed in my life. When I arrived at the club, Fu Yanji was seated in the main chair, his expression restrained, the corners of his eyes slightly red. A circle of rich heirs did not dare breathe. The moment they saw me it was like seeing a savior. They snapped to attention. "Hello, sister-in-law." The girl sitting beside him panicked when she saw me. With reddened eyes she said to him, "Yanji, I am back. Are you still going home with her?" I walked over and picked up the red wine bottle on the table. "Fu Yanji, go home, or get your head smashed. Choose one." The private room went so quiet that only overlapping breaths could be heard. Fu Yanji lifted his eyes to look at me. With just that single motion, I clearly felt his impatience. The rich kids who had been standing in a circle, afraid of getting dragged in, silently retreated to a safe distance. I held the wine bottle and stood steadily in front of the two of them, without moving. After a long moment, Fu Yanji curled his lips. "Who called your sister-in-law here?" As soon as the words left his mouth, the color drained from the girl's face beside him. She looked like she might shatter at any second. She clutched Fu Yanji's arm, her voice trembling as she asked, "Yanji, are you going home with her?" I laughed in anger, pulled over a chair and sat down, looking straight at her. "Ruan Lingling, while I can still hold it in, you'd better get lost on your own." A tear slid down from the corner of her eye. "Since you know who I am, then do you know that?" I cut her off. I know you are his white moonlight. There is still a photo of you in his study." A shy blush crept onto Ruan Lingling's face. Her eyes suddenly lit up. She gently leaned her head on Fu Yanji's shoulder. "Yanji, I am back. Get a divorce. After all these years, marrying you is still my biggest dream. I know you are unhappy. These years, you have lived too painfully." Fu Yanji tried hard to keep his usual poker face, but the bulging veins at his temple betrayed the storm inside him. He raised his hand, wanting to gently stroke Ruan Lingling's back. I sneered and interrupted their tender moment. "President Fu, looks like you do not want to go home. Then I am sorry." I raised my hand high. The red wine bottle in my hand came crashing straight toward Ruan Lingling's head. Bang! Along with the shattering sound of the bottle, screams erupted in the room. Ruan Lingling stared in shock at Fu Yanji, who was holding her tightly. Blood mixed with red wine poured from his temple. Yanji, are you okay? Are you okay?" Ruan Lingling stood up from Fu Yanji's arms, her hands shaking as she helped him sit down. She grabbed tissues from the table in a panic, desperately pressing them against the wound on his forehead. The tissues were quickly soaked through with blood. Ruan Lingling turned back, roaring at me like she had lost her mind. "You lunatic! Are you trying to kill someone? How could Yanji marry a crazy woman like you?" Fu Yanji took a moment to steady himself, then picked up the tissues himself, wiped the blood and wine that had seeped into his eyes, and held Ruan Lingling back. "Lingling, do not provoke her. Are you hurt anywhere?" Ruan Lingling pouted, held out her hand. There was a cut about 1 centimeter long from a shard of glass. Fu Yanji immediately stood up nervously, carefully cradling her hand, leading her out. "You are hurt. Why did you not say so? Come, I will take you to the hospital." I lowered my head and looked at my own hand that had been hanging at my side. Blood dripped from my fingertips, one drop at a time, soaking into the carpet and disappearing. I had been busy all day at the group, only had time to chew a few bites of bread at noon to entertain important clients. Finally made it to the end of the workday, saw the message someone sent me, and rushed to the club in a panic. "Fu Yanji, I am exhausted, hungry, sleep deprived, and I am hurt too." The Fu Yanji from childhood, the one who scraped his hands raw and was beaten until he was covered in blood, who rescued me from the kidnappers. How did he become such a stranger? A wave of dizziness hit me. The world spun. I instinctively grabbed the edge of the table, collapsed into the chair. I heard someone calling out to him, "Brother, sister-in-law is hurt too. She looks really bad." Fu Yanji's voice drifted over from afar. "She is strong. She can handle it herself." I looked up at him, his retreating back so resolute. "Fine, that way. When I close the net, I will not feel too guilty." I looked around. These infamous spoiled heirs of the capital circle stood properly. their eyes full of concern as they looked at me. I smiled and waved my hand. I am hungry. Be smart about it. Yes, sis. Coming right up. Wang Yun was the crown prince of the club. He was the most proactive, immediately arranging for people to clear the table and bring out fresh dishes. Watching them bustle around, they looked just like when we were kids, trailing behind Fu Yanji and me, calling us big brother and big sister. When did big brother stay big brother, but big sister turn into sister-in-law? Was it from the moment I was kidnapped at 5, when Fu Yanji, who was 3 years older than me, analyzed the tiny traces the nanny left behind, and found me before the police did? When I woke up from unconsciousness, and realized I was lying on Fu Yanji's thin back, him gritting his teeth, carrying me step by step out of that terrifying abandoned factory, that scene was etched into my heart for life. The elders joked that for the rest of his life, Yanji would always be Shishi's preference and exception. But later Fu Yanji had his white moonlight. Unlike me who lost my mother because of that kidnapping, I was raised under strict heir standards. Everything I did was for the family business and for revenge. But Ruan Lingling would never raise her voice at Fu Yanji, would never force him to read financial magazines or learn 8 languages. She would quietly stay by his side, watching him smile gently. She was willing to cook for him, willing to spend huge amounts of time, sitting through classes she could not even understand. Everything she did for him, I could not do. The environment I grew up in taught me to weigh gains and losses. Until Ruan Lingling fought with Fu Yanji because he was too rich. She said she would never fit into his world. After she turned away, she went abroad, and Fu Yanji did not chase after her. I knew he had big ambitions. He wanted the Fu family, and he wanted the Shang family. Before he obtained both, he would not give me up for Ruan Lingling. So when Fu Yanji proposed to me, I accepted without hesitation. Fu Yanji gave me all the romance money could pile up. I enjoyed it with peace of mind, more clearly than anyone else. I knew the Fu family and the Shang family would eventually all be mine. All the beauty he built with money was simply something I got to enjoy in advance. I lowered my head and ate, my mind rapidly reviewing my plan, a scheme over 10 years in the making. I could not allow a single mistake. Maybe I was too quiet. Wang Yun could not take it anymore. He slammed the table and stood up. Sis, you have never gone easy on any woman who shows up by my brother's side. Why did you back down today? He really knew how to hit where it hurt. The table suddenly went silent. I smiled and said, because she is Ruan Lingling. A white moonlight's damage. One strike is fatal. I took out my phone. The screen was clean. No calls. No messages. I thought, by now, Ruan Lingling's wound should have healed. Just as I expected, Fu Yanji did not come home all night. I stayed in the living room the entire night, quietly watching this city from midnight to 7 in the morning. I knew my era had arrived. When the clock pointed to 8, I got dressed neatly, used heavy foundation to cover the dark circles under my eyes, and got into the car that came to pick me up for work on time. I never expected to see Ruan Lingling at the company. She wore a brand new professional suit, sitting in the outer office of Fu Yanji's office. When she saw me walk past, she immediately stood up, smiling as she greeted me. President Shang, good morning. The satisfied curve of her lips, paired with her completely non-threatening face, made my eyes hurt. I darkened my expression, called the HR manager over on the spot, and loudly demanded an explanation, asking how just any random nobody could be stuffed into the company. Ruan Lingling was so humiliated she wished she could bury her face in the ground. Her face flushed red, tears pooling in her eyes. Under my aggressive questioning, she could not say a single word. I was angry. No one dared provoke me. After saying a few harsh words, I suddenly felt bored, waved my hand and said to the HR manager, fire her. Pay Miss Ruan all the compensation she is owed, not a cent less. The previously meek Ruan Lingling suddenly looked up at me, tears falling like broken pearls. President Shang, please, I really need this job. Please, do not fire me. Your world is so high above. I can only survive on your charity. Even this little bit of right, do you have to take it away from me too? Such familiar tea-flavored manipulation. I lifted my eyes, past her thin shoulders, and looked at the door behind her. Just as I expected, the door opened. Fu Yanji appeared at the doorway with a cold face. Shang Yangshi, you were born privileged, but that is not your license to bully people. This is my special assistant, not yours. With just one sentence, what matters more and what matters less was instantly clear. He walked forward, took Ruan Lingling's hand, scanned the room, and said in a deep voice, from today on, Miss Ruan is my special assistant. Everything she says and does, I take full responsibility. Is this what exception and favoritism look like? I said nothing, took 2 steps back, turned around and returned to my office. Near the end of the workday, my assistant reminded me that I was supposed to attend an important gala with Fu Yanji that night. Whether the project I had followed for half a year could be secured would depend on tonight. Taking deep breaths, giving myself enough mental preparation, I changed into my evening gown, redid my makeup, and went to find Fu Yanji. Just as I was about to knock, the door opened from inside. Ruan Lingling in an evening gown, holding Fu Yanji's arm. The two of them walked out chatting and laughing. I froze in place. It was early autumn. A breeze blew in through the window, brushing over my bare shoulders. A little cold. Fu Yanji stopped, gave me a cold glance. From now on, Ruan the assistant can accompany me to these engagements. No need to trouble President Shang. They walked past me, toward the elevators. Fu Yanji, this is a project I have followed for half a year. Fu Yanji's voice drifted farther and farther away. From today on, hand it over to Assistant Ruan. Fu Yanji personally stepped in and signed that project for Ruan Lingling. Before the project even started, the commission settlement sheet for Ruan Lingling was already placed on my desk. I did not sign it, returned it untouched. Even without receiving the commission, it did not stop Ruan Lingling from becoming the group's rising star overnight. Her name even spread among our partners. That day, I received a call from Chairman Chen. Shishi, what have you been busy with lately? You have not come to drink tea with Uncle Chen in a long time. I smiled. Uncle Chen, you are the real busy one. How did you have time to call me? Chairman Chen hesitated for a long while before saying, Yanji asked me for a standalone villa. The registered owner is Ruan Lingling. She should have moved in already. The teacup in my hand suddenly tilted. Tea spilled across the table. Counting from the first night he did not come home, Fu Yanji had not returned for 29 consecutive days. With the plan sorted out, I went from lying awake all night to falling asleep the moment my head hit the pillow. I carried 2 family corporations on my shoulders. Romance was never the main theme of my life. Wang Yun and those kids came to me many times, wanting to stand up for me. I stopped them all. Everything was under control. I did not feel wronged at all. These kids did not understand. When 2 sides are evenly matched, it is easy to last, and just as easy to hurt each other. Let the knots tied by time be undone by time. Soon, it was old Madame Fu's birthday. I pulled many strings to obtain a piece of calligraphy by a revered monk, whom the old madam greatly admired. I had it carefully packaged, with the inscription signed, Fu Yanji and Shang Yangshi, husband and wife. No matter what was happening inside, the dignity between elite families could not be lost. After hesitating in my office for a long time, I dialed Fu Yanji for the first time in a month. It rang so long I almost hung up myself before it was finally answered. Fu Yanji, I have prepared Grandma's birthday gift. Where should we meet to go back together? Ruan Lingling's soft yet smug voice came through. President Shang, you should go back by yourself. Yanji said he will take me to meet the elders. I moved the phone away and checked the screen. I had not dialed wrong. It was Fu Yanji's number. Let Fu Yanji answer the phone. Ruan Lingling giggled. Sorry President Shang, we just woke up. Yanji is making lunch for me. After hanging up, a WeChat message came in. Sis. Plan A. I stared at it for a long time, then instructed my assistant to book a stylist. Alone, I was still going to the banquet. At 6 in the evening, I stepped into the Fu family old residence on time. All the elders were there, asking why I came back alone. I brushed it off, but when I turned and saw old Madame Fu, my eyes reddened. She had watched me grow up, watched me marry into the Fu family, watched me gradually establish my footing. I had lost battles, but I had never shown weakness. She had ruled the business world for decades. I knew she understood. Her silence was the dignity she left me. I handed the calligraphy to Grandma with both hands. She lowered her eyes, saw our names written side by side in the inscription, and sighed softly. At that moment, a commotion arose at the entrance. I turned around and saw Fu Yanji holding Ruan Lingling's hand, carefully shielding her, walking in step by step. The expressions of those present varied. The old madam's face darkened. They walked through the crowd, stopping in front of old Madame Fu. Grandma, this is Ruan Lingling. I brought her to wish you a happy birthday. The old madam did not spare Ruan Lingling even a glance, and coldly called for the butler to see the guest out. Butler Li walked over, politely but distantly asking Ruan Lingling to leave. Tears filled Ruan Lingling's eyes as she looked at Fu Yanji. Yanji, I am sorry. I tried, but I really cannot reach your circle. From now on, live well with President Shang. Forget about me. After saying that, She turned around and ran out sobbing. I could not help rolling my eyes. This little green tea's acting just keeps getting better. But Fu Yanji panicked. He hurried after her, grabbed Ruan Lingling, and coaxed her softly. Kneel down. Old Madame Fu shouted angrily. For a moment the entire hall fell silent. Old Madame Fu leaned on her cane and walked up to Fu Yanji. She brought the cane down hard on his back. You ungrateful bastard. Fu Yanji straightened his spine and dropped to his knees, taking the blow head on. When old Madame Fu was furious, no one dared to speak, except someone who clearly could not read the room. Watching the cane strike Fu Yanji's back again and again, Ruan Lingling screamed and rushed forward. She wrapped her arms around Fu Yanji's back and choked out toward old Madame Fu. What is wrong with pursuing true love? He is your own grandson. The entire Fu family will be his one day. What could possibly be more important than him? The old madam snorted coldly and brought the cane down without mercy. With a dull thud, Ruan Lingling took the hit squarely. Fu Yanji, who had been kneeling straight, panicked. He turned and pulled Ruan Lingling into his arms, blurting out, "Grandma, Lingling is pregnant." Countless probing gazes landed on my face. Fu Yanji looked as if he had finally exhaled. He stood up and walked over to me. Shishi, let us get a divorce. I should take responsibility for Lingling. I owe her a proper status. My father snorted coldly. My father-in-law, Chairman Fu, strode over. He raised his hand to strike him. Dad. I stopped Chairman Fu. I walked slowly up to Fu Yanji, staring straight into his eyes, and said word by word, "Fu Yanji, say that again." I said, "We are getting a divorce." I nodded, and before anyone could react I raised my hand. Slap. A heavy slap landed across Fu Yanji's face. Fu Yanji, listen carefully. The moment we divorce, every asset under the Fu and Shang families will be immediately separated. I looked at my parents. My father nodded. You have full authority over the Shang family. I smiled. So Fu Yanji, are you sure you want a divorce? Fu Yanji panicked. The confidence in his eyes shattered instantly. He looked at my father. Dad, we cannot separate. If we do, both families will suffer losses. I make money so Shishi can live well. If my daughter is unhappy, who gives a damn about profit? I asked Fu Yanji again. Are you sure you want a divorce? Fu Yanji looked at Chairman Fu, then at my father, then at me. He hesitated, unable to speak. My father snorted coldly and came over to take my hand. Old Fu, my child, I am taking her home. With that, my father firmly led me away. Chairman Fu called after us urgently, but my father never turned back. When we reached the door, old Madame Fu's voice came from behind. Chairman Shang, please stay. My descendants are a disgrace. I owe Shishi an explanation. The Fu family will never acknowledge the child in that woman's belly. I will unconditionally give Shishi 5% of the shares under my name. Whether Shishi chooses to stay in the Fu family or divorce Yanji, this stands. With a thud, Ruan Lingling collapsed onto the floor. Fu Yanji did not reach out to help her. After leaving the Fu house, my father held me tightly in the back seat, his eyes red with pain. I wrapped my arms around him. After my mother died, he went gray overnight. From now on, I will face every storm with him. Dad, do not worry about me. This story is about to reach its finale. The project Ruan Lingling snatched ran into trouble. The client refused to see her and insisted everything be handled strictly according to the contract. A project I had personally followed for half a year meant the penalty would be astronomical. It was not a waste that I had paid a high price to lure Ruan Lingling back from overseas and give her every opportunity. She really did have some ability when it came to Fu Yanji. To help her, Fu Yanji spent every day visiting influential elders, trying to get someone to mediate and secure a chance to speak with the client. After going around in circles, someone finally told him. From the very beginning, the only person the client trusted was me. Only if I stepped in could there be any room to turn things around. When he returned to the office exhausted and frantic, the divorce agreement I had already signed was sitting on his desk. Fu Yanji grabbed the papers and stormed into my office furious. Shang Yangshi, this is kicking me while I am down. I looked up at him. President Fu, this project's penalty will completely drain the group's cash flow. From a business standpoint, is it wrong to stop the bleeding in time? He stared at me coldly, disbelief overflowing in his eyes. We have more than 20 years between us and you talk to me about business. I laughed in anger. President Fu, you have already caused a life to be created and you come talk to me about feelings. His momentum collapsed immediately. Shishi, that is not what I meant. You also hold shares in the group. If the group takes a hit, your interests suffer too. Can you step in and help me? I leaned back in my chair looking at this man who was once so untouchable. He could actually bow his head for another woman. Under his hopeful gaze, I slowly but firmly shook my head. The Fu group shares mean nothing to me. Whether they rise or fall makes little difference. President Fu, you should sign as soon as possible. I am making room for your white moonlight. The matter could no longer be dragged out and finally reached the board. The board issued an ultimatum. It must be resolved properly or accountability procedures would be triggered. After the meeting, I followed behind Fu Yanji out of the conference room. Ruan Lingling stood outside the door with swollen eyes waiting for him. The moment she saw him, she rushed forward and wrapped her arms around his waist. Yanji, how was it? Did the chairman agree to arrange for President Shang to help you? I laughed out loud. Assistant Ruan, let me brief you on the board's decision. First, President Fu must resolve this matter. Second, if it cannot be resolved and causes losses, he will be held accountable and may even lose decision-making power. Third, as one of the parties involved, Assistant Ruan, the group will also pursue your responsibility. Ruan Lingling froze. In front of all the directors, she clung to Fu Yanji and burst into tears. What do we do, Yanji? I am so scared. The directors stayed far away from them. Fu Yanji's face looked terrible. He dragged Ruan Lingling toward his office. I suddenly felt mischievous and shouted loudly, President Fu, be careful. Assistant Ruan is pregnant. The only response was a heavy slam of the door. That felt good. The arguing from Fu Yanji's office lasted the entire day. When I passed by after work, I could still hear things being smashed inside. I happily met friends for dinner, and when I got home I was surprised to find Fu Yanji waiting. Not easy, President Fu. It has been months and you still remember which way the front door opens. He stood up and took my coat. His face looked terrible in the literal sense. She help me. Fu Yanji, are you sick? He shook his head and sat down on the couch exhausted. She, this is all my fault. It has nothing to do with Lingling. The board is pushing too hard. Help me. The tiny bit of sympathy that had just risen inside me instantly died. Fu Yanji, is it worth it? He did not answer. For your white moonlight you are willing to lose everything you have now. He looked up at me excitedly. Lingling is not like you. She is innocent and kind. She would never scheme in every possible way for personal gain. I did not want to waste more time. I sent him an address on my phone, a relatively remote cafe. Tomorrow night at 8, come watch a show. After you see it, make your decision. With that, I gestured for him to leave. He looked at me in shock. She, this is my home too. It will not be soon. I turned and went upstairs. The next night at 8, when I arrived at the cafe, Fu Yanji was already there. He sat in a corner and waved at me. I signaled for him to stay seated and chose the booth closest to him. I did not wait long before Ruan Lingling arrived on time. President Shang, I am pregnant and cannot stay out too long. Just say what you have to say. I took out a check and slid it to her. 50 million. Abort the child and leave Fu Yanji. Impossible. Ruan Lingling said excitedly. I love Yanji. I will not leave him. Do not use money to insult my feelings for him. I will give birth to the child. Our family of 3 will live well together. I took a sip of coffee and patiently waited for her to calm down. Miss Ruan, you know how difficult your current situation is. The mess you created, if not handled properly, could cost Fu Yanji his position at any moment. When money reaches a certain level, it is just a number. Take it, abort the child and start a new life somewhere else. Single, rich and free. What is wrong with that life? If you stay at Fu, Group 1 will not help you with the project. Prepare for prison. Ruan Lingling fell silent. I took out a second check. Another 20 million. You have 3 minutes. She did not disappoint me. She took only 1 minute before picking up both checks. Thank you, President Shang. I will take care of it properly. Ruan Lingling disappeared around the corner. I turned to Fu Yanji. President Fu, your white moonlight is worth only 70 million. Peeved. Fu Yanji spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed sideways. Fu Yanji was hospitalized. The diagnosis shocked everyone. Stomach cancer. Late stage. The calmest person was Fu Yanji himself. Maybe he was not calm, just numb. After cashing the checks, Ruan Lingling left without a word. Fu Yanji seemed hollowed out. He calmly accepted every test and every treatment plan. He had no will to live but no will to die either. Another calm person was me. Every morning when I opened my eyes, I reminded myself, the final link of the plan must hold. Fu Yanji collapsed. Ruan Lingling left. The mess they made I had to clean up. 2 massive groups rested on my shoulders alone. I regretted countless times in front of Fu Yanji. He had always had stomach problems. We all thought it was from irregular eating. He said the pain had become more frequent. But Ruan Lingling's project had him overwhelmed. He kept thinking he would get checked once things eased up. In the end, everything was too late. No matter how busy work was, I carved out time every day to visit him in the hospital. Most of the time we sat in silence. After enduring the initial suffering, his condition improved slightly. Occasionally he would talk to me. Running back and forth between two groups and the hospital nearly broke me. At another Fu group board meeting after fierce debate over appointing a new president, I was exhausted in body and mind. That night at the hospital, Fu Yanji was resting. I fell asleep leaning against his bed. When I woke it was 3 in the morning. The night light was on. Fu Yanji leaned against the headboard quietly watching me. I jolted upright. "Are you feeling unwell?" He shook his head, reached out, stopped midway, then pulled back. "The board meeting today was exhausting, right?" I knew I could not hide it. "Yes. The directors want to replace the president." I argued with them. He smiled and patted my head. "Their candidate is you. That is good." "I agree." I shook my head. "You should focus on getting better and come back to carry this burden yourself. The Shang family is already enough for me." He fell silent for a long moment, then slowly took my hand. "Shishi, I am sorry. I might not be able to hold on. I never thought that in my final days it would be you by my side. I will pave the road for you. Do not be afraid. When busy, time always flies." By the time I finally cleaned up the mess Ruan Lingling caused and appeased the board, another month had passed. After this battle, my authority in the company reached an all-time high. Calls to appoint me as the new president grew louder. Fu Yanji's condition worsened by the day. One day the secretary suddenly informed me the chairman was calling an emergency board meeting. When I arrived I was surprised to see Fu Yanji there as well. He sat in a wheelchair, his face sallow, but he still smiled at me. "Shishi." I walked over quickly. "Why did you come out?" He held my hand and smiled reassuringly. "I came to handle something." Once everyone was seated, Chairman Fu entered with a man who resembled Fu Yanji by about 30%. I looked at Fu Yanji in confusion. He smiled and said, "My cousin." I knew Fu Yanji had a distant cousin. When I was kidnapped he had been visiting the Fu house. Shortly after my kidnapping his entire family emigrated. I had not seen them since. I found it strange. "Why come back suddenly?" Fu Yanji smiled and said nothing. I looked up at his cousin. He was also looking at me, eyes curved in a smile. "Nearly 20 years. Finally back." At that moment Chairman Fu cleared his throat and spoke. "We have convened an emergency board meeting today to announce 3 matters. First, this is my distant nephew Fu Sheng, a Harvard graduate who has returned after completing his studies, and I propose appointing him as the group vice president. Second, President Fu Yanji has formally resigned from his position due to health reasons." I turned my head in shock to look at Fu Yanji. He was very calm and I understood this was a decision he had already discussed with Chairman Fu. Chairman Fu smiled and said the third matter should be announced by Yanji himself. All eyes in the room fell on Fu Yanji. He was still holding my hand and with his other hand took the documents handed to him by the lawyer behind him. "This is a signed gift agreement. I am voluntarily and unconditionally transferring 20% of my Fu Group shares to President Shang Yangshi. The agreement has been notarized and is now in effect." The conference room erupted in an uproar. I stared at Fu Yanji in shock, unable to speak for a moment. Chairman Fu smiled and said, "Starting today, President Shang is the largest shareholder of the group. I propose that the shareholders vote to appoint a new chairman." Without any suspense it passed unanimously and I became the new chairman of the Fu Group. After the meeting Fu Sheng knocked on my office door. "Shishi, I am back." I held out my hand to him. "Happy cooperation." Fu Yanji's condition worsened by the day. His moments of clarity grew fewer and whenever he was conscious he asked for me. I handed all my work over to Fu Sheng and focused on staying with him at the hospital. Perhaps sensing his time was limited, he began to grow nostalgic, repeatedly recalling the past. I patiently stayed with him, retelling those memories again and again. One day, with the sunlight just right, I pushed him into the small garden to bask in the sun. He looked up at the warm light spilling onto the ground and suddenly said to me, "Shishi, do you think this sunlight looks just like the day you were rescued?" I smiled. After waiting so long it finally arrived. Yes, that day when I learned of my mother's death I cried on Fu Sheng's back as we walked out of that pitch-dark abandoned factory, and the first sunlight I saw was exactly like today. Later you insisted on taking me from Fu Sheng's back and staggered as you walked, nearly falling several times. Thanks to Fu Sheng guarding us from behind, I did not fall to the ground. I remember Fu Sheng seemed to ask you why you leaked my whereabouts, causing my kidnapping and my mother's fatal heart attack. I also remember he asked why, even though he found me first and was taller and stronger, you still insisted on carrying me out yourself. You said the Shang family was too powerful and only this way would you have a chance, and you wanted the Shang family to forever remember that you saved me, that the Shang family would forever owe you. You also said when you grew up you would marry me and then both the Fu family and the Shang family would be yours. I put both hands into my coat pockets and looked down at him. Yanji, think back carefully, did I get anything wrong? Fu Yanji lowered his head, his body visibly stiffening as beads of sweat poured from his forehead and dripped down his temples. I pulled out a tissue to wipe his sweat and asked with concern, why are you sweating so much all of a sudden? Did I say something wrong? He lifted his head, his sallow face turning pale as he stared at me. You were only 5 years old. You were clearly awake, so why did you pretend to be unconscious? Since you knew my plan, why did you still agree to marry me? I crouched in front of him and met his eyes. Because from the moment I became aware, the first lesson my father taught me was never to show all your cards, not even to the people closest to you. As for why I married you, it was simple. You wanted the assets of the Shang family and I wanted the Fu family to avenge my mother. You see, didn't I get what I wanted? Fu Yanji was extremely agitated. He could no longer stand, yet the hand gripping the wheelchair armrest bulged with veins. Shang Yangshi Yuyu. The most vicious heart belongs to a woman. I stepped back to avoid the saliva he sprayed in his rage. Fu Yanji, who can you blame except your own lovesick brain? You still do not know, do you? Ruan Lingling was brought back by me. She really is an excellent actress. Every time I played opposite her I felt even my own acting improve and thought I might chase an acting dream myself. If you had focused wholeheartedly on your career and kept the Fu group firmly in your hands, at most I would have only been a vice president. One wrong move and the whole game is lost. Who else is there to blame? Fu Yanji's hands trembled violently, his eyes rolled upward as he was on the verge of passing out from anger. Do not rush, there is one more thing I have not told you. I took a medical report from my bag and handed it to him. Before Ruan Lingling returned, the group organized executive health checkups. I picked up your report for you, but I was in a hurry to go to the US to find Ruan Lingling, so I forgot to give it to you. Fu Yanji stared blankly at the bolded words suspected gastric cancer recommendation for further examination, his lips trembling for a long time before his eyes rolled back and he completely lost consciousness. Due to extreme emotional agitation causing a ruptured cerebral blood vessel, Fu Yanji never woke up again. He did not die but was kept alive in an expensive care facility. I repeatedly instructed them to use the best medication. Each extra day he lived was my greatest comfort in this world. After confirming with doctors again and again that the probability of him regaining consciousness was essentially zero, I bought a plane ticket and flew straight to the US. Ruan Lingling came to pick me up. She drove me along the coastline westward until we finally reached the estate she had bought herself. She followed behind me, introducing her property as we walked. In the reception hall at the end, tall, handsome foreign young men in proper servant uniforms were waiting for her. I asked her if she hated me. After all, Fu Yanji truly treated her with devotion. Ruan Lingling smiled and shook her head. Sister, I will always be grateful to you for pulling me up. Fu Yanji's love was suffocating. He broke my wings and wanted to cage me by his side. But I came into this world not to be his personal canary. I also want to see the stars and the sea. I fought desperately to escape from him, hiding in the US for so many years, afraid to live under my real identity. You gave me the chance to be reborn. Ruan Lingling smiled and raised her glass to me. To you. To me. To freedom. When the plane landed back home, the person picking me up was Fu Sheng. He personally drove me home, casually reporting on Fu Group operations along the way. Because of the time difference I grew sleepy, struggled for a bit, then simply lowered the seat and fell asleep. I slept deeply, and when I slowly woke up it was already dark. The car was parked outside the villa and a thin blanket covered me. Fu Sheng stood outside the car smoking. I opened the door, stepped out, took my suitcase and unlocked the door to go inside. Fu Sheng stood at the doorway, hesitated for a moment, then asked, Shishi, may I come in? I shook my head. President Fu, it is very late, please go back. As I moved to close the door, Fu Sheng braced it with one hand and said urgently, Shishi, back then the Fu family feared I would reveal the secret that I was the one who saved you and forced our whole family to emigrate. We lived in poverty abroad, and if Chairman Shang had not sent people to find us, our family might have died in a foreign land. I studied desperately, got into Harvard with the sole belief of coming back and having enough ability to stay by your side. Could you give me this chance? I straightened up, met Fu Sheng's eyes and slowly but firmly shook my head. My life goal is to have money, have a career and be myself. In my life plan there is no option for love. I hope you can achieve your own wishes as well. But if your wish conflicts with my goals, I choose to love myself. Fu Sheng stepped back 2 paces and quietly looked at me for a long while. His gaze was calm and accepting. With a sigh he turned and left. Watching his taillights disappear around the corner, I took a deep breath. From here on, the long road of life will surely bloom with flowers. Love yourself. Everything else does not matter.